Known locally as the birthplace of American religious freedom, the neighborhood of Flushing, Queens is now so diverse that it has become a microcosm of world religions. According to census statistics, Queens itself is now the most ethnically diverse county in the nation. And as far as religious diversity is concerned, in Flushing alone, which stretches no more than 2.5 square miles, there are currently nearly 200 different places of worship. In his book, City of Gods, author R. Scott Hansen documents the dozens of temples, mosques, churches, and synagogues that dominate the Flushing skyline and the religious communities that call this New York enclave home. Professor Hansen joins us now. Professor, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me, Rob.
So, Professor, I wonder if you could elaborate just how religiously diverse is Flushing, Queens?
Right. Well, as you noted, there are over 200 different places of worship in less than 2.5 square miles, densely concentrated in this, diverse residential and commercial district. And, there are 6 Hindu temples, several mosques, synagogues, Buddhist temples, over 100 Korean churches alone, and some of the oldest other churches and synagogues in the city.
Immigration is what's driving. The immigration and the immigrants that have found residence in Flushing is what drives this religious pluralism. But let me ask you, is this religious pluralism that you find in Flushing, is it like a quilt where each religion is like a distinct piece sitting next to a different distinct piece, or is it more like a melting pot where each religion keeps its flavor but unite to form a more tasty stew?
Yeah, there's so many metaphors for diversity in American life.
I use the most hackneyed ones.
Right. The melting pot's really common. I like to think of it more as a mosaic or a patchwork or a symphony even. But in Flushing, you do see various ethnic enclaves or parts that are more Korean or Chinese or Indian. But because it's New York and there's not much space, people do mix quite a bit.
Increasingly so?
They do, yeah.
And I guess, second generation and third generation, probably even more.
Right, they bump into each other on the subway and the elevator and so on. And so they may not, interact a great deal always, but at least they tolerate and are aware of each other.
As you write, the famous theologian, Jesuit theologian, John Courtney Murray once asked, how much pluralism and what kind of pluralism can a pluralist society stand?
Right.
How does the Flushing experience help answer that question?
Murray wrote at a very different time in 1960 when, at the time the country was largely Protestant Catholic Jewish, white and black, and he was tapped to work on Vatican II and changing how the Catholic Church viewed religious pluralism itself. So he asked that question that you formulated at a very different time, different circumstances, but I think it's more relevant today in a place like Flushing and also in the increasing religious diversity in America too. And so what I've learned in studying Flushing for many years is that any community like Flushing and elsewhere around the country can accommodate and absorb a tremendous amount of religious diversity and still turn out okay. There are growing pains. Parking is an issue on the weekends, you might imagine, when people come to shop and worship and so on. Yeah. It's probably one of the biggest issues. There are social limits. I said, New Yorkers like their privacy, right? They may be aware of others, but they still want their privacy, and they may not always interact in meaningful ways. There are certainly exceptions. Many people enjoy meeting people from different religions and cultures and so forth, right? There are also, limits of race and ethnicity. There are parts of Flushing are segregated. There are, ethnic enclaves like we just spoke about. There are theological limits as well. Some people are not interested in speaking to a Muslim if they are an evangelical, or fundamentalist Christian. They would rather convert them, right? So those are some of the limits, but the good news is that people can live together in civil coexistence.
But, as world history has taught us, unfortunately, diverse places, even as diverse, maybe not quite as diverse as Flushing, Queens, but with a great deal of religious diversity, can turn into its opposite. How does that happen, and how do we avoid it?
I think places that are just beginning to experience rapid demographic change are the ones that are most afraid of the other and of religious difference and ethnic difference. You saw parts of the country that voted overwhelmingly for President Trump that were characterized to some extent by that nature, that this kind of loss or nostalgia for kind of a circa 1940s, early 50s white Protestant America that is changing. And in fact, President Trump himself is from Queens, ironically, and wouldn't recognize it, I think, in some ways today. Might be afraid of that diversity in some ways. But that's actually what makes America great again, diversity and immigration.
All right. Well, Professor, your book is City of Gods, Religious Freedom, Immigration, and Pluralism in Flushing, Queens. It's a great read, especially for this day and age. Thank you so much, Professor.
Thanks for having me.